In the early 20th century, the world believed it had survived the worst war in human history. World War I had ended in 1918, leaving millions dead and entire nations in ruins. Leaders promised that such destruction would never happen again. But peace was fragile. Beneath the surface, anger, fear, and ambition were quietly reshaping the world. Within just 2 decades, humanity would plunge into an even deadlier conflict. This was World War II. The Treaty of Versailles officially ended World War I, but it planted the seeds for another. Germany was forced to accept full blame for the war. Its military was severely restricted, its economy crushed by heavy reparation payments, and its national pride shattered. In Germany, hyperinflation destroyed savings. Unemployment soared. The new democracy struggled to survive. Across Europe, borders were redrawn without much thought for the ethnic or cultural realities on the ground, creating new tensions. In Asia, Japan emerged from the war as a growing power, but it lacked the natural resources needed to fuel its industry. Expansion seemed inevitable. The world order was unstable, and it was only a matter of time before it cracked. Economic despair created the perfect opportunity for radical leaders to rise. In Italy, Benito Mussolini promoted fascism, an ideology built on extreme nationalism, total obedience to the state, and military might. In Germany, a man named Adolf Hitler rose from obscurity to power through powerful speeches and masterful propaganda. He found scapegoats for Germany's suffering, blaming internal enemies and foreign powers. By 1933, Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. Within months, democracy collapsed. Political opponents were arrested. The press was silenced. The Nazi state was born. Meanwhile, in Japan, military leaders gained more and more control over the government, convinced that expansion was essential for the nation's survival. The world watched all of this unfold, but the international community failed to act decisively. With its new leadership, Germany began to openly violate the Treaty of Versailles. The military was rebuilt, far beyond the limits it was supposed to follow. German troops remilitarized the Rhineland, a key industrial region. Then, Austria was annexed in an event known as the Anschluss. In 1938, Germany demanded territory from Czechoslovakia. Britain and France, desperate to avoid another war, chose a policy of appeasement. They hoped that by giving Hitler a little of what he wanted, they could prevent a larger conflict. It did not work. On September 1, 1939, German forces invaded Poland. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany. World War II had begun. Germany introduced a terrifying new form of warfare, Blitzkrieg, or lightning war. It was a devastating combination of fast-moving tanks, overwhelming air power, and coordinated infantry attacks that completely overwhelmed enemies before they could even react. Poland fell in a matter of weeks. The speed and brutality of the German advance shocked the world. By 1940, Denmark and Norway were captured. Belgium and the Netherlands collapsed. Then, in a stunning turn of events, France surrendered, and the German army marched into Paris. The fall of France left much of continental Europe under Nazi control. Only Britain remained standing, alone against the German war machine. Hitler prepared to invade Britain. But first, Germany needed to control the skies. The German Air Force, the Luftwaffe, launched massive air raids against British cities and airfields. This campaign became known as the Battle of Britain. Night after night, bombs fell on London and other major cities in a period called the Blitz. Civilians took shelter in underground train stations. Entire neighborhoods burned. Yet, despite the destruction and loss of life, Britain refused to surrender. The pilots of the Royal Air Force fought heroically, holding the skies against a numerically superior enemy. For the first time, Hitler suffered a major defeat. In 1941, Hitler made a fatal decision. He turned his attention east and invaded the Soviet Union. The invasion, codenamed Operation Barbarossa, was the largest military operation in human history. Millions of soldiers clashed across a vast front, stretching for thousands of miles. The initial German advance was devastating, capturing huge territories and millions of prisoners. But then, the brutal Russian winter arrived. German supply lines, stretched to their breaking point, collapsed in the snow and ice. Soviet resistance hardened, and cities like Leningrad endured years of horrifying siege. The Battle of Stalingrad became a bloody house-to-house turning point. The German army was bled dry and would never fully recover from its losses on the Eastern Front. While war raged in Europe, Japan was expanding aggressively across Asia and the Pacific. On December 7, 1941, Japanese aircraft launched a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. This act brought the United States, a sleeping giant, into the war. The Pacific became a brutal battlefield, with American and Allied forces fighting island by island, jungle by jungle, against a determined Japanese military. The Battle of Midway was a crucial turning point, where the U.S. Navy crippled the Japanese fleet, shifting the balance of power in the Pacific for good. World War II became a total war, a conflict that involved entire societies, not just armies. Cities were bombed relentlessly from the air. Factories that produced weapons were key targets, and civilians were directly in the line of fire. At the same time, the Nazi regime carried out one of the darkest crimes in history, the Holocaust. 6 million Jews were systematically murdered, along with millions of other victims, including Roma, political dissidents, and disabled people. The network of concentration camps and extermination centers, like Auschwitz, revealed the horrors of industrialized death. This genocide would forever scar human history and serve as a terrible warning for future generations. On June 6, 1944, the Allies launched the largest amphibious invasion in history. On D-Day, thousands of ships and aircraft carried Allied forces to the beaches of Normandy in France. This opened a critical second front in Europe. Now, Germany was squeezed from both the east by the advancing Soviets and from the west by the American, British, and Canadian forces. Allied armies pushed across France, liberating Paris in August 1944. Italy, Germany's main ally in Europe, had already surrendered. The end was near for the Axis powers. In the spring of 1945, the final days of the war in Europe played out. In April, Soviet forces fought their way into the rubble of Berlin, the heart of the Nazi regime. Trapped in his bunker, Hitler committed suicide. Germany officially surrendered on May 7, 1945, a day celebrated as Victory in Europe Day. But the war wasn't over. In the Pacific, Japan refused to surrender, preparing for a bloody defense of its home islands. To avoid a costly invasion, the United States made a momentous decision. It dropped 2 atomic bombs, one on the city of Hiroshima and another on Nagasaki. Faced with this new, devastating weapon, Japan surrendered on August 15, 1945. The war was finally over. World War II completely reshaped the world. The United Nations was created in the hopes of preventing future global conflicts. Old colonial empires began to collapse. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as the world's 2 new superpowers, setting the stage for the decades-long Cold War. The cost of the war was unimaginable, with tens of millions dead and entire continents in ruins. But the lessons were clear. Peace is fragile. Democracy must be protected. And history must always be remembered so that we never repeat its darkest chapters. Thanks for watching. If you found this history interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.